Spoke to Mark Regev. He's a senior advisor to Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He used to be Israel's ambassador to the UK. I asked him, with 9,000 people now dead in Gaza, many of those children, whether Israeli action can still be considered proportionate.
It is indeed. Israel is protecting our country. We're protecting our civilian population. We have taken a decision that we simply refuse to live any longer next to this terror enclave, an ISIS-type enclave, where people cross the border and so brutally murder our civilians. They rape, they burn people alive, they cut people's heads off. We refuse to live in that situation any longer.
Indeed, but people will listen to that and entirely accept what you're saying, but then wonder why it is that you are killing civilians.
So if it was possible to send an email to the Secretary General of the United Nations and say, please dismantle the Hamas's military machine, of course that would be preferable. But that's not a realistic option. If we don't do it, no one else will. And it's our people who were killed. It's our responsibility to defend the Israeli public.
At what point does it not become proportional?
According to military law, according to the rules of armed conflict, you can attack a target, you have to destroy your enemy, that's acceptable. And then there's the question, which is in the Geneva Convention, in the additional protocol. What is a permitted target and what is a forbidden target? And of course, places like hospitals, schools, humanitarian sites are forbidden targets. They are protection under international law. But the 13th article of that additional protocol of the Geneva Convention says specifically, if the enemy has turned those humanitarian sites, has, to want of a better word, has desecrated them, has turned them as part of his war machine.
And this is the argument that there are tunnels under hospitals.
They're not an argument, it's the truth. There are tunnels under hospitals, and there have been documented cases in the past of them storing missiles in schools, of using UN facilities for their war machine.
Mark, you will have seen the pictures of children being pulled out from rubble, dead, severely injured. You will have seen the effect of the airstrikes. Do you seriously look at that and just think this is a necessary price that the Palestinian people have to pay?
I don't think that at all. On the contrary, we are making a maximum effort, first of all, to have civilians leave areas of combat. And we've been, for more than 2 weeks now, we've been urging people to leave these areas. And the truth is, the majority, the overwhelming majority, some 800,000 Palestinians have voted with their feet and moved to the south out of this heavy fighting that's happening in the north.
And you know the south has been shelled too.
But not in the same way. And once again, in the south, we're establishing together with our partners in the international community a zone close to the coast, close to the Rafah crossing, so it's close to where the aid is coming in, where there will be an area which will be designated a zone for civilians. That's work in progress, but we are on that now.
You're talking about moving 2 million people, some of whom are in hospitals who cannot move or in situations they cannot move. It's not a reasonable request, is it?
I disagree. To suggest that people move out of a combat zone is reasonable. Of course, I understand that not everyone can move. And I think there's also evidence that Hamas is preventing certain people from moving. And we will continue to distinguish between our target, which is the Hamas terrorist organization, and between Gaza civilians who are not our target. We will try to do the best we can in what is ultimately a very difficult combat situation.
The Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights has said, given the high number of civilian casualties and the scale of destruction following Israeli airstrikes on Jabalia refugee camp, we've serious concerns these are disproportionate attacks that could amount to war crimes.
I reject that totally. Israel is acting within the framework of the international rules of armed conflict. And I would remind you, when Britain and its allies defeated ISIS in Iraq and Syria, there was also collateral damage. There were also examples of civilians being caught up in the crossfire. We are acting in a way that is in accordance with international law. And I can tell you in the past, I've sat in meetings with British officers, with American officers, and we've compared the ratios of combat to civilian casualties in these sort of urban conflicts, and it's very difficult for everyone.
Yeah.
But Israel does not compare badly with other countries who've been in similar conflict.
Now, on another matter, of course, there are many British people, many dual nationals, foreigners in Gaza trying to get out. There have been, I think, as we understand it, just less than a handful of British people who have got out. What's your understanding of when Britons will be allowed out of the Gaza Strip?
So we've been dealing with this issue since the conflict started, and from Israel's perspective, anyone who wants to leave should leave. Yes, we've got no interest in civilians being in Gaza, being trapped there. On the contrary, we're eager to facilitate their exit. We want to get them out of any danger. I was speaking with the British government last night. We've been working closely with the Brits on this issue. Yesterday, I understand a small group of British nationals left. Today, I expect more to leave, and we'll continue to work with Britain and the others to facilitate the exit of foreign nationals.
Mark Regev talking to me. Coming up.